We own about 18% of Amex. And, everybody in the world wants to control payments. And payments is a huge, huge game. And different countries will respond in different ways. But I like our 18% position in Amex. And I like our 5.5% position in Apple.
I've talked before on this channel about how, as interesting as it is to listen to what billionaires say, it's even more interesting to watch what they do. Buffett doesn't himself pay for things using his American Express card, which he got in 1964. However, he recognizes that this is a huge company and a great investment for a number of reasons. Since the clip that I just showed you, Apple did a 4-to-1 stock split and has gone up in price ever since. American Express, on the other hand, not so much. We can see here that the American Express share price tumbled down rapidly from its peak of $135.58 on the 18th of February to $74.05 on April the 13th, meaning that it had lost 47+% of its value during the March sell-off. Since then it's been slightly choppy, but it's now hovering around the $92 per share mark. This 6-month view gives us more of a glimpse of the sideways nature of the trading pattern associated with American Express. The trend appears to be going back up despite the fact that the company missed its earnings per share targets and revenue targets. But as we look here, we can see that the profitability of the company is reasonable, the dividend growth rate and the payout ratio are acceptable as well. So these are all things that the company has in its favor at the moment. Let's listen to Buffett talk about the company again in the year 2000 shareholder meeting of Berkshire Hathaway.
American Express, an interesting case study, because it does have we always think in terms of share of mind versus share of market, because if share of mind is there, market will follow. People, virtually, probably 75% of the people in the world have something in their mind about Coca-Cola. And overwhelmingly, it's favorable. Everybody in California has something in their mind about See's Candy, and overwhelmingly, it's favorable. The job is to have it in a few more California minds or world minds, in the case of Coke, over the years, and have it even be a little more favorable as the years go by. If we have that, everything else follows. And consumer product organizations understand that. American Express had a very special position in people's mind about financial integrity over the years and ubiquity of acceptance. When the banks closed in the early 30s, American Express travelers checks actually substituted to some extent for bank activity during that period. The worldwide acceptance of this name meant that when American Express sold travelers checks, for many years, their two primary competitors were what are now Citicorp, First National City, and the Bank of America. And despite the fact that American Express charged you 1% when you bought your traveler's checks, and you had two other premier organizations, Citicorp, imagine, and B of A, and actually Barclays had one, and Thomas Cook had one, and American Express still had 2/3 of the market after 60 or 70 years, 2/3 of the worldwide market, while charging more for the product than these other very well-known competitors charge. Anytime you can charge more for a product and maintain or increase market share against well-entrenched, well-known competitors, you have something very special in people's minds. Same thing came about when the credit card came around. Originally, American Express went into the credit card because they thought they were going to get killed on traveler's checks, and they thought it was going to be a substitute, and therefore they had to go into it. It was a defensive move. It came about because a fellow named Ralph Schneider and Al Bloomingdale and a couple people came up with the Diners Club idea. And the Diners Club idea was sweeping, well, initially New York and then the country in the mid-50s. And American Express got very worried because they thought, people are going to use these cards. Nobody had ever heard of Visa at that point or anything of the sort, but people were going to use these cards instead of traveler's checks. So they backed into the traveler's check business. They backed into the credit card business. Immediately, despite the jump that Diners Club had on this business, because Diners Club had the restaurants signed up already, and they already had the high rollers carrying around their card, and nobody had an American Express card. But American Express went in, and they started charging more than Diners Club for the card, and they kept taking market share away. Well, that is a great position to be in people's minds, where they are willing to, when faced with a choice, they're willing to go with a newer product at a higher price and leave behind the entrenched product. And it just showed the power of American Express. American Express had a special cachet. It identified you as something special when you pulled out your American Express card as opposed to your Diners Club card and as opposed to the Carte Blanche card, which was the third main competitor at the time. Visa still did not exist. And you could see this dominance prevail. That told you what was in people's minds. It's why I bought into the stock in 1964. We bought 5% of the company for a huge investment at the time for us. I was only managing $20 million at the time. But you could see that this share of mind, this consumer franchise, had not been lost.
So, having said all of that, we're now going to get into the topic of the video, which is 5 reasons to love American Express. Now, I'm not saying that you should love them. I'm not saying that you should take out a credit card. I'm not saying that you should spend money that you don't have. I'm not encouraging anybody to get into debt, anybody to be irresponsible, or any of that. I'm simply noting some of the reasons why this brand is popular. So we're just going to do that right now. Okay, number 1, easy acceptance. Even if you're somebody who's never had a credit card before, never had a charge card before, doesn't really know that much about credit cards, is sort of intimidated by the whole process, or perhaps you're somebody who has just arrived later on in life, let's say, at the realization that you need to have a good credit score in order to tap into the many benefits that having a good or excellent credit score offers, and you haven't done that yet. Well, American Express make it an easy place to start, because if you get a credit card with them, they'll give you a reasonably high starting credit card limit. And as long as you're faithful to that and don't spend more than what you should, ideally you want to be spending less than 30% of what your credit card allowance is and paying off every single month on time any bill that is due without incurring any interest penalties. Then you're going to have every chance of obtaining improvements incrementally over time in your credit score. So you get a high starting credit limit. What else do you get? You get good customer service. If you lose your credit card or have a problem, or if you make an accidental purchase, or if you receive goods in the post that are damaged, you can call up American Express 24/7 and they will deal with your complaint. They will reverse the transaction in many cases, because you will get 24 months of purchase protection guarantee with everything that you buy on your card. You also incur bonus points whenever you make purchases on American Express. Now, I'm not going to get into that. There are plenty of websites out there which detail it in more depth. You know, you've got the Points Guy, you've got Ask Sebi, all these other people who dedicate their lives to talking exclusively about credit card points. I'm not one of those people, but I'm at least someone who will mention it briefly in this description. But what else? Well, the last major thing is credit card limit increases. Now, what's the point in this? Well, there are a number of benefits. So let's say you've had a credit card for a while, you haven't been spending much money on it because of the fact that you want to establish a reputation of trustworthiness and to build your credit history. You're just thinking to yourself, okay, fine, I'll make a few discretionary purchases. I'm not going to go over about a few $100s a month. And then what will happen over time is that your credit score will go up. And as it goes up, the credit card company, in this case American Express, is much more likely to approve an increase to your credit limit. Now, it's very important to know how to handle this. And if you do it the way that I recommend, which is something that I learned because I did it wrong myself, then you're likely to benefit. What do I mean? Well, in my case, I was looking to get a credit card limit increase. I think my limit was something like £5,000. And it wasn't that I wanted to spend more money. It was that my credit score wasn't as high as it should have been. And I thought to myself, well, if my monthly outgoings are fairly consistent, the only real way that I can hope to boost my credit score in the short term is by increasing my credit limit. Why? Because I will have a lower effective credit utilization ratio, which is one of the key factors which determines credit score. If I have more credit available to me, but I'm spending the same amount, then overall my credit utilization ratio is going to drop, which is quite good for the credit overlords. And it means that the credit score that I have is likely to go up and up over time. However, so I recognize the importance of it. However, the way I went about attempting to get an increase was incorrect. What do I mean? American Express gives you the option, if you apply online, to increase your credit limit, of actually typing in the sum or quantity of cash that you would like your credit limit to be. So what did I do? I wrote down a number which was really not very much bigger than my existing credit limit. I don't know why, but if I just looked up online for a few articles or videos, or if I just done a little bit of research for 2 seconds, I would have realized fairly quickly that you can request a credit limit increase that's up to 3 times as high as your limit is today. So I could have asked for £15,000 and it probably would have been approved. And instead I asked for, I don't know, 5,500 or 7,000. No, I asked for 5,500. And it was approved immediately, and I was walking around the house thinking, I'm such a genius. Whereas I could have asked for far more. So don't make the mistake that I did and ask for hardly any, because whatever you ask for is what you'll get. So you might as well ask for a massive increase. That doesn't mean that you're going to obviously want to be spending more cash. It just means that you're going to have access to that higher credit monthly rolling limit, which is going to improve your credit score over time, which is what you need to have in order to be permanently a serf of the banks. And no, I'm joking. I mean, as much as I do think I'm going to try and strive to get a high credit score, I recognize that there are other people out there who are really just rebelling against the system and doing everything they can to just trash their credit score, because they just think, well, what's the point? You know, if the World Economic Forum have their way and tell everybody that they can have all of their debts forgiven in exchange for owning nothing, then what's the point in me being good and trying to pay off a mortgage and actually trying to own my own private property? Why don't I just let my credit score go to zero again and just become a complete slave of the system for the rest of my life? But anyway, those are just some thoughts. I don't recommend that approach. I think you should still try to get a good credit score because it offers lots of opportunity for you. And American Express make it easy. And you can also, if you get on somebody else's card, if you get to be an approved user of somebody else's card who has a higher credit score than you, then the chances are that over time your credit score will improve just as a result of being associated with that person's card.
In the considerable period of time, American Express got into other businesses. They got into Fireman's Fund Insurance, was a very big acquisition. And to some extent, they let the Visas of the world and all of those get established. They still had this preeminent cachet position, but it was eroding. But I would say that Harvey Golub, along with a lot of other people in the management, have done an extremely good job of reaffirming, intensifying the cachet. There will be probably $300 billion worth of charges, something in that area, put on American Express this year. The $300 billion, those are big numbers even in today's world. The average discount fee is about 2.73%. If you look at the average discount fee on Visa, MasterCharge, you know, it's going to be probably a full percentage point beneath that. So you've got a percentage point on $300 billion, which is $3 billion of revenue that your competitor doesn't get. You can do a lot of things for your clientele. And they've segmented the card, as you know. They've even recently gone to this black card, and which sells for $1,000. And it's got a very special cachet. I would say that, I wouldn't use the word inevitable, but I would say that nourished properly, that the American Express name has had, excuse me, has huge value and is very, very likely to get stronger and stronger as the years go by.
Let me know what you think. It's all fairly straightforward stuff. You probably know all this anyway. And hope to speak to you soon. All the very best.